Monday, August 24th. 2 days will be the anniversary of the Abbey Gate bombing during the evacuation of Afghanistan back in 2021. Clearly, those that follow my channel, I've been doing a piece on Sergeant Tyler Vargas-Andrews. Um, hell of a Marine. The guy is just incredible. Just, awesome guy. I mean, going out, calling out leadership for fumbling the ball when it came to that evac. Putting putting the heat under some of the people that were ditching accountability, which quite frankly needs to happen more often. As much, there's always, as much as everybody thinks the military has everybody that's very honorable, there are some people who tend to slip in that only care about their own self-personal interests, promotions, their own awards, raises, etc. Um, and people that deserve awards, people that don't. The award system's pretty fucked up for the most part. But I mean, as far as calling out, you're engaged, you're able to take the shot of the suspected person who they've, been looking for. He's ID'd to shoot him. And when your own battalion commander, or in this case, Lieutenant Colonel Whited, says, "I don't know," I mean, I can't get over that one. That just blows my mind. And it's like, you follow the chain of command and order procedures and whatnot. There's so many SOPs in the military, especially when it comes to people sniping, because of rules of engagement, Geneva Convention, and a lot of other rules that seem like the United States were the only ones that ever actually followed the damn things. Everybody else can do whatever they want. But anyways, for somebody in that high up of a position, being a commissioned officer, it blows my mind. I mean, it's there. You would have saved 95 Afghans, and you would have saved 13 military service members, with the simple pull of that trigger. But Tyler Vargas-Andrews, he's recovered. I mean, you've all seen the Sean Ryan, I'm sure, that he was on. He goes into detail on it. More so interesting, though. I mean, as far as hearing his account, if you have time, I recommend checking out the entire report that he gave about his account of what happened that day. It's all over YouTube. I think you can get it on C-SPAN. There's a few others, but it hits hard watching that. I mean, you see somebody who's, all the horror that he'd gone through. I mean, he had, over 49 surgeries, over 150 ball bearings that they had extracted from him. There's still some in him they can't get to. But, if you look at those IED vests, or suicide vests, as some people like to say, they are brutal, man. I mean, just a vest, bunch of ball bearings that are barely tacked together on a sheet, and all it takes is one explosion, boom, just shoots everywhere. It's like walking claymores. But the fact that he had that many, and here's the crazy thing, is that not one single one hit him in the face, neck, head. I mean, he had his helmet on, but let's face it, helmets don't really do as much protection as we wish they would. But missed most of his vitals. I mean, they had to, of course, amputate 2 limbs, but I mean, what a stud. I mean, and he gets out there, he advocates for the 13 that had died. And, I think that right there is probably one of the most important things of all time as far as my content on my channel. Like I said in prior lives, there's certain ones that are important that I feel like I need to focus on. And in this instance, those 13 lives, now there's a lot of woulda, couldas in hindsight. But I mean, that just shows you the amount of pressure and stress, one of our service members has to go through, as far as whether it be protecting the country, but, following the chain of command. It's a very, that's procedure. That's what you do. And unfortunately, at times, command makes piss poor decisions or doesn't make decisions at all, and they shouldn't be in those positions if they can't do that. So for him to go advocate for the 11 Marines, that corpsman, and that U.S. soldier, I think that was, that's just a righteous thing to do. You know, that's like a true Marine right there, through and through. Um, but you know, it's a cool story, and you know, I kind of picked him because of this, as well as the anniversary for that is coming up. You know, and that was a pretty shitty day. I mean, there's been a few since the global war on terror. There's been a few incidents, you know, aside from just the terrorist attacks in 9/11. But you know, you have that Operation Red Wing issue, and there's the whole Marcus Luttrell crap, and I'm not going to get into the bull crap on that stuff. But you know, you have that, and then you have the extortion 17, you know, situation where that chopper crashed. I mean, there's been quite a bit of mass casualty incidents, you know, in the last 20 plus years, but some of them don't really get mentioned as much. And you know, I'm looking into some of the other ones, but I don't know. We'll see how that goes. Um, Other C topics here. Billy the Kid. Okay, so last year, probably around this time, I was doing a Outlaw Gunner episode on Billy the Kid. Now there was some information that was out there, and it was not valid information, and so that's why I discontinued making that segment because I couldn't verify it. What it was is there was the Colt Single Action Army revolver that Pat Garrett used to kill Billy the Kid had sold for $6 million. Now, there was some disputes and experts, you know, trying to verify it, make sure it is the correct gun. And, you know, that it plays a big part in the piece of the Outlaw Gunners, because here's the thing. Of course, we're talking about the outlaws, but we're also talking about their guns and the stories behind them. Um, you know, I mean, like $6 million for that gun. Pat Garrett, I mean, he was pretty shady. You know, Billy the Kid had like a $500 bounty. There's a theory with a lot of people that they faked Billy the Kid's death, and then they that Pat Garrett split the award with him. I mean, that's rumor and speculation and whatnot. And you know, there's other people who have said that, oh yeah, but you know, he's popped up, but he's under a different alias and blah blah. And there's a picture, and it's just like you can't even tell who the picture is, man. I mean, like you look at Billy the Kid's one real picture that we know of, you know, where he looks like a pretty rough street urchin dude. I mean, he was a cowboy, you know, cattle rattler. He was stealing, but um, I'll tell you what, he sure as shit didn't look like Emilio Estevez. Let's put it that way. You know, kind of had a Mad Hatter look going. But you know, that gun though, $6 million. It's insane. And like the other thing with Billy the Kid and all my sources and stuff like that, you know, while doing this piece on him, he was never really a pistol guy. He'd been in maybe one gunfight with a pistol. He would shoot people with rifles. You know, he loved his what was it, Weston, and I'll have to look it back up. But lever action rifle, and that's what he carried. He was on a horse the majority of the time. You know, Young Guns, they make it look like he was just out there, you know, like Donnie Harden or something like that. But I mean, he had balls, and he did go after people for revenge for killing his friends, you know, and all that stuff. And that's part of that world. Now, possibility wise, is it possible that he may have created a new life under an alias? Sure, because back then, I mean, you really think about it, records were not as you know, they weren't as accurate, or even if there were any. A B, you know, a lot of people when they move out to the Wild West, it's to get away from other problems and shit like that. I mean, for instance, the Earps. Wyatt Earp and his brothers were not these awesome, you know, benevolent lawmen or whatnot. They were dudes hustling and trying to make money just like everybody else. I mean, their strategies, they would show up into a mining town or camp or timber or any place where there's going to the railroads, any place there's any opportunities for money, and end up taking over it. Like Tombstone, for instance, Wyatt Earp and his brother showed up. The first thing they did, find out who law enforcement was, all that stuff. They seeped their way into the hotels and brothels, set up gambling, set up taking a cut of gambling money from all the other people in town, you know, running the prostitutes. And it's just like, you know, they get there, and then later on they become deputized. And at the same time, though, if you want to read about Wyatt Earp and the truth behind it, a lot of those kills you see or whatnot in that movie Tombstone, they they put warrants out for his ass to get arrested for the murders of all these people, because regardless, you go vigilante, you're still committing murder. And he left the Tombstone area out to the west coast of California. It's kind of where he lived his life. But, then he wrote his memoir or whatever. But it's just the Wild West. What's funny is how they just embellish the living shit out of everything, or they wash it and make their own narratives and notoriety. It's like Wild Bill Hickok, supposedly he's this awesome gunfighter and he's killed a bunch of dudes or whatever. And then I look at his old military record that they have over in Smithsonian. He was a piss poor shot. He was drunk all the time. He was gambling. He had multiple disciplinary actions while he was in the Continental Army. And it's just like, oh, okay, so he really wasn't as big of a badass as everybody thought. He's just a degenerate like the rest of us. But I mean, it's just another crazy thing about the Wild West and history and everything like that is you come out to the Dakotas. This whole area at one point was occupied by the French. Louisiana Purchase and everything along that line. Lewis and Clark. You come up here, whatever. You have all the different tribes that live in this region. You have the Lakota, you have the Dakota, and you have the Nakota. And everybody calls them Sioux, but the thing is that's not the correct classification. The meaning of Sioux is actually a word from the Comanche, which means enemy, and white people ran into the Comanche before they ran into the Dakota tribe that I just mentioned, and that's kind of how the term Sioux came to be. So the tribes are not Sioux, even though they're labeled that way, because Sioux is enemy in their language. But there's the massacres of all those people, and like when I moved out here, I was very unaware of the atrocities that happened. I knew there was a lot of terrible things that settlers did and people in the Indian Affairs bureaus did along that line, but not to the extent of living out here and actually speaking with people, who have relatives that lived through a lot of that crap, or stories passed down. One in particular is the Catholic Church set up all these boarding schools for all the indigenous and just abused the living hell out of them. Kids were missing. I mean, just all sorts of terrible shit. So you have that. You have the Indian Bureau of Affairs, the Rosebud Agency in specific here, who, they're over the Pine Ridge Reservation, the Lakota tribe. They were taking money. They were taking supplies that were supposed to go out to the indige on the reservations and whatnot. And, I mean, there's all these horrible things that they tend to not tell you in high school history. I'll tell you that. And when you get to talk to real people who, are around the area, you really get to learn quite a bit. And quite frankly, I love the Lakota. I love Crazy Horse. I love the story of that defiance, and Sitting Bull, same thing. I mean, it's when I go up to the Black Hills, if you ever go to the Crazy Horse Monument, they have this awesome visitor center museum. They have, kind of statue busts of some of the major chiefs they had and whatnot, or their war captains and things along that line. And you walk over to the gun case, and it's cool to look at it because, like, these guns belong to these guys in history. And looking at it, and I just think in my head, these guys they're warriors. I mean, they fought for their land. They were fighting for what was right. Technically, their real belief is that the land cannot belong to anybody, which, that makes sense because that's their ways. But looking at those guns, it's just like, I mean, some of them are like the Winchester Golden Boy, or, there's a bunch of lever action rifles. And then there's a few of those in the case that belong to some of the people that were in the U.S. Army cavalry with Custer and a few other skirmishes that they were in during the time. And it's like, these guys, the Indige, like Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse, they had better guns because they had raided places and got a hold of them to fight against the U.S. troops. And, with the massacre of Custer and the cavalry, the guns they had were just the trap door back, where you can only load one at a time, whereas to the Lakota guys all had guns, repeating rifles, which huge you know, it's just something very admirable. I think that's as American as it gets if you really think about it, unfortunately. But you know, with the Lakota and all that stuff, you know, there's a lot of cool stories too. Really, really cool stuff. You know, learning about different omens and things like that in their culture. It's fascinating, but at the same time, it's sad because their populations are so small. You know, it's slowly just dwindling down. And then the other unfortunate thing is like the reservations. If you look up Pine Ridge, which is, you know, over by Rapid City in the Badlands, it's declared a third world country. I mean, it's sad. You know, there's a few little villages that were there at one point, a couple still operating. Human trafficking is horrible on the reservations, especially with Native girls. They just disappear and nobody sees them ever again. And like with the reservations, you know, and law enforcement, you know, they have the res cops, but because they're not recognized as part of the state of South Dakota, that makes it so they're federal, and the FBI is the one that has to do investigations. And with how vast the land is on it, it's a complicated task for that type of stuff. But you know, it's you'll see wild dogs running around. I mean, hell, the one thing that I do like is that Kristi Noem, our former governor, who's now over ICE and all that shit, she was trying to go there to speak with some people or give some sort of rally or something, and they told her, "Fuck off." You know, you're not allowed on our land. And the best part about it, there's nothing she can do about that. So, you know, I gotta hand it. I love it. Just props and defiance on that when it comes to, you know, taking care of their people and their beliefs. But you know, that's kind of my rant for today, guys. One of the last few days, good weather. Probably we're gonna get out here. But you guys enjoy your Sunday. Have fun. Be safe. More videos will be dropping. And take care.